If you are using FlutterFlow and you would like to deploy your application to the App Store, you're in the right place. This is a full walkthrough video. Hopefully you enjoy it. So before we get into the main detail then of the video, there's a couple of bits of information that you are going to need to know. Firstly, you are going to require a FlutterFlow Pro subscription in order to deploy to the Apple App Store. This is the power of FlutterFlow. It makes it super easy to deploy your apps to the Apple Store once everything is set up. Secondly, one of the other key points of information you're going to need in order to deploy to the App Store is you are going to require an enrollment to the Apple Developer Program. Now, of course, this is going to cost you $99 at the time of recording, but once you've got that, that is a yearly membership that you're going to have to subscribe to. That will allow you to then publish applications to the store on a continuous basis. And the third one that you might want to consider is that you're going to need probably a privacy policy for your application as well to go alongside some of the details you're going to have to key into the Apple sort of program. So just make sure that you do follow some guidelines in terms of adding privacy policies for your application, because chances are you'll be capturing details from your users. And just one point of note here in this particular video is that there is many different ways to publish your application to the Apple App Store. This is a way of doing it via FlutterFlow. It's part of the Pro membership. It makes it super easy, but if you want to do things in a manual way, you can do that as well, and that can just reduce that cost slightly in maybe another part of the FlutterFlow subscription model where you can download the code and then you can deploy it to the App Store in a manual way. So without further ado, let's get into the video and let's get cracking. So let's talk very quickly then about the program that you need to enter on the Apple side in order for you to publish your applications. This is the Apple Developer Program. This is really just like a membership system that you're going to need to subscribe to and pay your $99. Once you've got that, that will then give you access to the resources and the tools that you need in order to distribute your applications on the Apple App Store. And one other part of the system is called App Store Connect, which is really kind of like the hub of where you would start to key your details in and set up your application ready for distribution. And the fantastic thing about the Apple Developer Program and the tools that it provides is that they can provide you with some additional tooling which will allow sort of friends and colleagues and family to download the application that you would build and test it on their own devices. So there is definitely tools within inside the program that's going to allow you to do that. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to head over to the link in the description or go to developer.apple.com/programs, hit on the enroll option that's just up here. And read some details here. You can enroll obviously as an individual or an organization. Myself, I'm just an individual, and I can hit on the start your enrollment, and then you're going to need an Apple ID in order to get started. So do sign in with your Apple account and then start that enrollment process. And it's a few bits of sort of wizardry you need to go through and sort of key all the details in. But once you're there, you have your account, and then it'll open up to a whole wealth of resources and tools. So we're going to walk you through that process in this particular video on accessing the App Store Connect sort of website, and then we can start adding our details of our app in there as well. So that'll get you started. So go ahead and do that, and then you'll be ready to go. So if you've been watching and following along on one of my previous videos when we've talked about actually distributing our application to the Google Play Store, you would have set up your package name for your application within inside the FlutterFlow settings. You can see here I'm just on the cog here on the settings, I'm over app details, and it's the package name which is super important. This needs to be completely unique. Now this is the package name that we used in that particular previous video, and that's the one that I'm also going to use within inside this particular walkthrough as well. So just make sure that you've got your unique package name. You can see here it's gone with a standard kind of implementation of com dot and then my name and then dot the name of my project. Now hopefully that is unique, and in my case it will be, but that's what you just need to make sure you also do in your projects as well. And incidentally, of course, if you use Firebase or anything like that, then chances are you would have already set up your package name to match what you need for working with Firebase as well. So just make sure you got that, and then we can now make a copy of this, and we can then head over to the Apple account, and we can then start adding the identifier in for our application. So let's go and do that now. So I've now signed into my Apple Developer Program account, and this is what I'm presented with at the time of recording. Now, Apple do have a bit of a tendency to change the look and feel of these websites, and I think they're getting it really right, actually. I've been using this portal now for many, many years, and they're definitely making it a lot easier for people to kind of get a hang of what on earth they're presented with, certainly if you're not familiar with all of this stuff as well. So what you need to do is, once you're here, you need to move over to the identifiers option here. Just select identifiers, and then this is where we now need to add an identifier in of our application. So just hit the plus up here on identifiers. Now here you've got a number of different options depending on what you're doing. Now in our case here we are just registering an Apple ID here, so just make sure that's selected, hit continue, and we just need to make sure the app is selected here on the left hand side. Hit continue, and this is where we now need to start keying in some really important details. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put a description of my application. So I'm going to type in here goals and tracking of tasks. Just keep it like that. Hit the tab and then move over to this bundle. Now this is where you need to put in that bundle that we've just now copied, the actual package name that we've selected on the previous step. So let's just paste that in here, and you can remember it's called com.thedigitalpro.mygoals. That's all that we need to do. Now down here, this is where we need to look at the capabilities of our application. Now my application is really simple. It is really not doing anything clever, but it depends on how complex that you make your application. You may need to enable some of the capabilities that your application may use. Okay, but to the most part, you would probably find if you are building a kind of like a FlutterFlow application, that chances are you won't be reaching out to use any of these extended services. I mean, there could be a case, of course, where you might be using push notifications, for example, so you need to make sure that you choose that. But in terms of what we need, there's nothing here that I need to actually select in my application. So I'm just going to hit the continue option up here, and then hit, once you've done that, then just hit the register, and then that will then get registered on screen, as you can see here now. So next up, we need to go to the Apple Store Connect website. The link again is in the description, but it's appstoreconnect.apple.com. Once you log in, you should be presented with the dashboard like this. And this is where we now need to start setting up our application within inside the platform. So just move over to My Apps. So hit the little plus option up here and go to New App, and then in the top option there for platform, just choose iOS because that's what the platform I'm going to publish to. I'm just going to tab down here to my to name, and I'm going to call this application My Goals. Just going to move down to primary language here, and let's move up to English UK. And then the bundle ID is goals tracking of tasks. That's the one that we just created previously. Now with the SKU here, what I recommend that you actually do is put actually in the package that you had sort of selected previously. So let's just put the digital pro dot, and I think I just called it My Goals. That's pretty much what I'm done. And then user access is full access. That's fine. We don't need to make any changes there. Hit the create option. Okay, so there you go. The system has now taken those details. That's pretty well much the bare bones information that we need in order to set up our application within inside the App Store Connect sort of dashboard. So then back with inside FlutterFlow, just a couple of extra things that we now need to actually check. We want to make sure that we've got our mobile application to the best it can in terms of being set up and ready to go with inside the actual platform. If you move over to app assets here on the left hand side, and if you followed my previous video on getting this set up with Google Play, you'll see here that we've already populated here the splash screen and then the actual launcher icon itself. So you want to make sure that you go and have a look at that video there, of course, and follow along, but you're going to make sure that you've got your app assets already loaded at this particular time. It'll make it easy if you do it now instead of doing it later on. And then what we're also then going to do is then move our attention down to the mobile deployment section here on the left hand side. Again, if you followed the previous video in terms of Google Play, you'll see that we've already got all of this kind of stuff set up, so we should be good to go there. But of course, we need to focus our attention around this particular area here. So what we now need to do is we now need to go to the App Store Connect webpage. We need to pull some additional details in here. We also need to generate some further key data, which we need to also associate here and upload as our private key. So let's now go over to the App Store Connect and let's pull the app ID actually into this particular section. If we move over to App Store Connect, you can see here we're back into this particular page that you saw earlier on. Move over to app information, and the key piece of detail that we absolutely need to capture is this one here, this Apple ID. Let's just copy that. So I'm just going to copy that to the clipboard, move over to FlutterFlow again, and let's just paste that in here. So that's our app ID set. Now let's move back over to App Store Connect, and let's now do some further configuration there. So next up then, to generate our API key, we need to head over to the App Store Connect homepage. This is appstoreconnect.apple.com. Okay, so you need to go back to the root of the website. You should be signed in and you should see this particular screen. Hit the users and access option here on the left hand side. And then what you need to do is move over to the keys option here. And this is where we now need to hit the generate API key in order to bring up this particular box here. So I'm just going to call this one, so I typed in code magic for FlutterFlow, and then the access. Now this is really quite important actually. You really want to be very careful here that you don't open up your API key to certainly administration access. Okay, different roles within inside the Apple ecosystem will obviously open up different sort of levels of access to your application. So for further information on this, if you hit the little question mark here and hit the learn more, and then up the top here, there is an option, in fact here, just view role permissions here. And then if you look down here, this will give you a good overview here of what different roles kind of do what. But actually there's an even important page here, which will give you a little bit better information, is this one here, visit program and roles. And if you go down here, you'll see that there's kind of a matrix that kind of gives you pretty well much the levels of access, right from kind of like account holder, which is going to be yourself, through the admins, right the way down to the lower tier of sort of roles and responsibilities. Now if you look actually down this matrix here, you can actually sort of follow this down a bit lower, down to sort of users and access, and then my apps. And you can see here that a developer has has some level of sort of restriction here. So what I tend to do for myself here, just purely because I've never really been told anything otherwise, is I've looked at this and I've actually selected app manager as really the kind of the level of role that I would actually go to apply on that previous screen. So have a look and just choose the right one for you. But in my instance, I'm going to be choosing app manager for my particular role. So just hope to go back here. Let's just choose app manager and then hit the generate option. So that key will be then generated, and then you'll see that it then becomes an active key in the list. Now I've masked some details here because some of this is obviously private to my account here, but certainly that's what you should now see. Now the next thing you need to do is actually then download that API key to your local machine. So just go over to the right hand side, hit the download API key option, then hit download. So that's now downloaded and saved on my system. We're going to need that in just a moment. We're going to need to upload that to FlutterFlow. So in fact, let's do that right now. Let's move it over to FlutterFlow and then let's upload that key. So if inside FlutterFlow, then hit the upload private key option, and then I'm just going to navigate then to the folder. So there it is, auth key, just choose that, hit open. That key has now been set. So we now need to bring in further details in here. Okay, so let's move back over to the App Store Connect page. Let's copy this particular issue ID is what we need. As you can see, I've masked it, but let's just copy that. Let's move back over to FlutterFlow. Let's just paste that in here. Next up, we need to pull the key ID in. So let's go back to App Store Connect. Let's grab the actual key ID that you would have in your system here. Grab that. Let's just paste that in here. So that is now all set. So here we go then, we've got to a really important point, and this is where we can now attempt to deploy our application to the Apple App Store. Of course, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sending this particular version, and we're going to be then making it available within App Store Connect, but we're going to then have to work on it within inside that platform in order to get it to where we need to get it to in order to submit for an Apple review. So what we need to do now is we need to hit the deploy to App Store option just up here. Now it's going to come up with this prompt here, just hit deploy. Now the key thing to point out at this particular stage is this is likely to take a little while. Now it really depends on how busy the Code Magic platform is, obviously, which is what is behind the scenes here, which is doing the kind of the packaging up and deploying it to the actual App Store Connect platform. But this is likely to take some while. Okay, so what you just want to do is, now that it's actually been submitted, you can see it says submitted here. You can then check the build status. Now that's currently queued. Now it might likely remain in a queued state for perhaps perhaps 1 or 2 hours, but certainly do check the build status, because it just really depends on how busy the system is. And then once that is done, we'll then return back to the Apple Connect platform, and then we'll see how things are looking on there. Okay, so just gone away for a coffee. An email landed to tell me that my application has been published to the App Store, and that can be seen here with inside FlutterFlow, because it says here that it's finished. I check the build status here, and of course it's given me all of those same details. So we look like really good position. Let's pop over to the App Store Connect page and let's see what we got there. So here we are then back in App Store Connect, and what we now need to do is we now need to associate the build that we've just had made for us. We now need to associate that with this particular application. So if we just scroll down here, and you can see there's an option down here called build. If we just say add a build, this is the version that we uploaded. And of course, if we had published multiple versions that we had with inside FlutterFlow, we'll see them all listed here. This allows us to choose the one that we want, which is this one just here, and we just hit done. You can see here that we've now got a compliancy issue that we need to resolve. I just hit the manage. We just need to set the compliance information here to none. Please do read this carefully, but pretty well much if your application conforms to this, then just choose none of the algorithms mentioned above, just hit save, and that compliancy issue has now disappeared. So we're now in a really good position. And now what's kind of remain left for us to do at this particular stage is now start adding all of our sort of our screenshots and all that kind of stuff, you know, our promotional text, all the detail about our application. We now need to start filling in. Now it's quite self-explanatory what you need to do on here, so you can fill all of that in yourself. Once you're into that position and you've got all these details then filled in, you then could be in a position where you can actually save and then add for review. So what will happen is that you at the moment you're in a preparation for submission stage, but you can actually add for a review, and you can actually then publish that to approve your application then to be sort of deployed onto the actual App Store into production. But just make sure that you go through all of these sections here. Just make sure all of those details are filled in, and also down here as well, so it's all fully embedded into the system. And of course here the screenshots, all that kind of stuff. Now if you what I highly recommend you do, if you've got this running on a device, what you could do is you could take some screenshots on your actual device itself, so you can put that in here. So if you're running the simulator, for example, actually offline and actually within inside your Mac environment, then you can obviously create screenshots within inside the simulator and all that kind of stuff. So you will need to make sure you add some screenshots in here. Now one option for you, if you haven't got access to all of that, is that you could use a platform called TestFlight. Up the top here you've got this option called TestFlight. If you just choose that, what TestFlight will allow you to do is you can actually download TestFlight as an application from the App Store onto your iPhone device, and then what you can do is you can then actually submit this as an application to be available with inside TestFlight, and then you can invite users such as your friends and your family or even yourself to then be able to then run your application here on your local Apple device. Now that will also allow you to obviously do screenshots and all that kind of stuff that you can then load back into the into the publisher pages that you saw previously. So do have a look at TestFlight. It's a fantastic way to be able to test your application on your sort of local device, and it's great for other users to be able to test that as well and then provide feedback back into you. And the good thing about TestFlight is that it's very local. It doesn't go out to a wider distribution, and you can keep it under your control. So do have a look at TestFlight as a good option for you to get up and running. So one final little tip that I love to introduce you guys is this fantastic little website that I've used for a little while called icon.kitchen. And if you are struggling to kind of come up with an icon or something like that, and you want to get yourself up and running really quickly, head over to icon.kitchen, because what this will allow you to do is allow you to create some icons for your applications, both on iOS and on Android as well. You can hit the little plus up here. You can add an Android icon in, and what's great is you can go down here and you can put some icons in. You can change the colors and kind of all of that jazz. And the great thing about it is that you can then get yourself up and running really quickly. But of course you could also add some kind of images in and all of that kind of stuff as well. So have a go at that. It's a great little tool, and you can hit the little download option up down here, and of course what you'll get is you get a zip file that will include a whole variety of different sizes of icons that you can actually use within inside your application as well. There's a little plus here as well. There's one other little option I spotted here earlier, which is this Play Store banner as well. So if you are in the Google Play Store, you can obviously create a banner for your application as well. So have a little look there. Might be useful for you to use in a future project. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video on getting yourself prepared and ready to deploy your application to the App Store. The application, by the way, that was used in this particular walkthrough is my goals tracking app, which is a FlutterFlow application using Supabase as the backend. I've got a full 16-part series on my channel. So if you want to build this application, then please do head over and have a look at those videos, because I'll walk you through the process from start to finish, and then you can then make the changes to this application however you see fit, and then you can also use that on your deployment of your App Store and Google Play Store and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please do like the video, and of course please do subscribe to the channel as well. If you love the no-code space, if you love FlutterFlow, then please do become part of the community. It's great to have you here, and there's so much more videos on my channel, and there's so much more to come in the future. So until the next video, I'll see you soon.